So, hope I'm audible. Okay. Okay. So, okay. So, good evening. So, today's class will be the continuation of the previous class. That is your epithelial tissue and connective tissue. So in the human body, the main four tissues going to be your epithelial tissue, your connective tissue, your muscular tissue, and nervous tissue. Hope the last class was a little clear about we discussed in detail about both the epithelial tissue and the connective tissue, right? So under epithelial tissue, we saw about the types of epithelial tissue, the function, and where do the specific epithelial tissues are seen, and what is the main function to present there and all we saw. And under connective tissue, we saw about the bone, where we got to discuss about the organic matrix, inorganic components present in the background, everything we just which was dealt in detail about the both your connective tissue and the epithelial tissue. So the remaining two things, that is your muscular tissue and your nervous tissue, will be seen today. Okay. So yeah. Okay. To start about the muscular tissue, there are three types of muscular tissue. That is your skeletal tissue, skeletal muscle, your smooth muscle, and your cardiac muscle. So we'll be dealt with each muscle in detail. Okay. So to talk about muscles, yeah, basically whenever it comes to the locomotion or any movement of your body, it is always your bone and your muscle, right? So yeah, basically muscles are what? They are highly cellular and vascular tissue specialized for contraction via the interaction of myofilaments, which will further result in movement of the body. So what does this mean is it is highly cellular, meaning they are made of more of fibroblasts. And yeah, obviously it is vascularized tissue. See, any tissue of that matter has to be richly vascularized, right? For it to happen in a normal manner. So it states that highly cellular and vascular tissue specialized for contraction via the interaction of myofilaments. So what this interaction, what this myofilaments contraction, and all I'll just tell it in the upcoming slides. But all these myofilaments will interact in the muscle. All these myofilaments which is present in the muscle will interact together, produce contraction, thereby causing the movement of your human body. Okay. Again, as I said, the muscle is again broken down into three basic types of tissues. That is your skeletal, smooth, and cardiac. And why they are named so, we'll be seeing in detail. Okay. So the basic function is what? Contractility, excitability, extensibility, and elasticity. It's very obvious when a muscle is there, yeah, it undergoes contraction. When it undergoes contraction, it has to recoil. Like it has to have the elasticity property to recoil back to its own shape, and extensibility. It should also have the ability to stretch, and excitability. Excitability is meaning when impulses, like when neuron signals are sent, you have the muscle has to respond to that nerve signals and act accordingly. So this is the basic function of your muscle tissue. So as you can see, as I said in the first thing, there are basically three types of muscle: skeletal, cardiac, and your skeletal, your cardiac, and your smooth muscle, right? So yeah, uh, all these are okay. All these are named because of the function they perform and the appearance they have. Okay. So first is your skeletal, your cardiac, and smooth muscle. I'll be dealing in detail in the upcoming slides, but this is just to give you an outline mind map of what is skeletal, what is cardiac, and smooth muscle. Okay. So as you can see the picture, the normal picture, the gross picture here, the skeletal muscle is basically cylindrical shape. Like imagine a hose pipe of an water. The outlet, how it would be, the base outline is going to be generally cylindrical in shapes. That is your skeletal muscle. This is one fascicle, we can say, or we can say it as one bundle, we can say. This is your skeletal muscle. So you like this, you're going to have so much of, okay. Yeah, like this, you're going to have so much of bundles here. As you can see the histological image here, there is so much of bundle. This is one bundle, this is one bundle, this is one bundle, and this is one bundle. Yeah. So you can see so much of bundles here. This is your skeletal muscles are arranged in bundles, and each bundle is going to be cylindrical shape. All right. Whereas your cardiac muscles, when it comes to your cardiac muscle, you can see the branching in the cardiac muscle. Can you see the branching? This is one branching. You can see one branching here and one more branching here. So your cardiac muscles are known for branching. Okay. So you can see here in the histological picture, you can see one branching here. You can see a branching here. Okay. And all these central joint are your intercalated discs. Okay, we'll talk about them later. I'm just telling the basic difference between these two muscles. Okay, so this is your cardiac muscle. But what you can see the unity in both these types of muscle is your striations. Can you see green, red, and purple lines here? And also here, you can see the purple, red, and green lines. So this is the basic thing which is common in both your cardiac and skeletal muscles. This is why these both are also called as your striated muscles, because they're having striations. Whereas in smooth muscle, you don't see this type of striations, right? So that is why this is your non-striated muscle. Okay, let's come to the striations part. This is because your muscle is going to contract or relax. Okay, so in such cases, you're going to have these types of striations. These striations are nothing but they are protein, your actin and your myosin proteins. Okay, so which contracts thereby forming a muscle movement. Okay, then why it's not there in smooth muscle? We can say smooth muscle, though they have actin and myosin filaments, they're not going to have the striations. Okay, mean in other hand, they have actin and myosin filaments as such. Okay, and when it comes to your smooth muscle, can you see the shape? It is cylinder. Again, it is a oval shape, both the ends narrowing at their, both the sides narrowing towards the tapering towards the end. Okay, it is not cylindrical as your skeletal muscles. It's basically oval shape, but both the sides tapering towards your end. This is your smooth muscle. You can just correlate the same with your histological picture. So one cylinder is this one, and you can see the branching here with intercalated disc. This dark perpendicular lines are your intercalated disc. And you can see the smooth muscle here, histological pictures. Can you see the taperings here? This one and This one, like that, you can see all the smooth muscles have been, all the ends are tapered towards the end, all both the sides are tapered towards their end. So these are the basic differences. So this is how you can just come to a conclusion that whether it's in skeletal, cardiac, or smooth. First of all, look for the striations. With striations, you can come to a conclusion whether it is in striated muscle or smooth, or your smooth muscle. Under striated, you're going to have both skeletal and the cardiac muscle. Okay, under to differentiate from skeletal and cardiac, you're going to have the branches. Your cardiac muscles are branched like this, right? Whereas your skeletal muscles are not branched. They are distinct cylindrical muscle fibers. Fine. Okay. So other than the striated and non-striated, there is some other name which can be given to this type of muscles. That is your voluntary and involuntary. Okay. Voluntary is under consciousness, the muscles are going to react. Whereas involuntary is without consciousness, your muscles are going to react. Okay. In such case, your skeletal muscle is your only voluntary muscle, whereas both your cardiac and your smooth muscles are your involuntary muscles, because your cardiac muscles are seen in your heart. Yeah, it is involuntary, going to pump blood throughout the body, right? So that is your cardiac muscle. And smooth muscle, where your smooth muscles are commonly seen in your digestive tract. So as and when the food is flown into the food is gone into the intestine, it is going to contract, and it is going to contract for the food to allow passage of the food through the food pipe, right, through the intestines, right? So that is your smooth muscle. Again, that is also your involuntary action. Whereas your skeletal muscles, as your name suggests, your skeletal muscles are always attached to some type of bone, like your arms and legs. Okay, voluntarily, if you want to if you want to expand, or if you want to give a shake hand, or if you want to move your leg voluntarily, what you're doing is your voluntary muscle, that is your skeletal muscle. Your voluntary actions are performed only by your skeletal muscle. All right. Okay. So coming on to the next thing. So from here, we'll be seeing each muscle in detail. Okay. So yeah, as I said, your skeletal muscle tissue, it is the most important, like I would say about 40% of your body weight is made up of your skeletal muscle. All right. So whenever it has come to your locomotor system, other than your bone, your cartilage and tendon, your skeletal muscle tissue also comes in part. So as I said, it is composed of muscle cells, also known as muscle fiber, connected with thin fibrous extracellular matrix called extracellular matrix. Your muscle cells are nothing but they are cylindrical shape and contain multiple nuclei. Yeah. As I said, you can see your muscle cells in skeletal muscles are going to be cylindrical shape. This is one cylinder. Imagine this is your one cylinder. Okay. And they are multinucleated. You can see many nuclei over the peripheral area. Okay. Remember, your nuclei or in your skeletal muscles are placed only at the peripheral areas. Okay. So yeah, cytoplasm of a muscle cell is known as the sarcoplasm, and its membrane is known as the sarcolemma. It's nothing but your cytoplasm and cytoplasmic membrane. Okay. In muscle, it is your sarcoplasm and your sarcolemma. Cytoskeleton. Now, regarding the cytoskeleton, what is basically cytoskeleton? In a cell, cytoskeleton, what it gives? It gives your structural framework for the cell to hold its shape or to maintain its shape in a particular in a particular state. It should have a well-built cytoskeleton, right? In that case, for muscles, we have small fundamental units known as myofibrils, okay, which contains thin actin filaments surrounding thick myosin filaments. So the functional unit of a myofibril is your sarcomere. So nothing but your sarcomere, or your muscles are going to have sarcomere as an cytoskeleton. And these sarcomeres are going to be made of two important proteins, that is your actin and your myosin filaments. Okay. So the sarcomeres are nothing but your myofibrils. Your myofibrils are nothing but your muscle cells. All right. Muscle cells are nothing but your fascicles. That is your one branch, or we can say one bundle. Your fascicle is also your bundle. Okay. Yeah. So again, what this myofibrils, as I said, the sarcomere, right? These myofibrils are responsible for muscle contraction and relaxation when the positioning of the filaments change. Between the myofibrils, the sarcoplasmic reticulum is present, which stores and releases calcium for contraction. Okay, I'll just explain this part. So your myofibrils are nothing but your sarcomere. Okay, sarcomere is what? fundamental unit of your muscle fiber, that is your sarcomere. Okay, so you can see here. Okay, you can see here, this is one muscle fiber, I mean muscle bundle, or you can say it as a muscle fascicle. Again, this is one fascicle. Okay, all the outer layer is surrounded by your epimysium. Okay, I'll talk about that detail in the upcoming slides. So I'm just explaining here. And each bundle, okay, each bundle is your each fascicle. You can see each fascicle. See, this is your cross section. This is one fascicle. This is one fascicle, and this is one. As such, it goes on. Okay. So I'm just taking out one fascicle outside, and you can see the myofibril here. These are your myofibrils. These are your sarcomeres, we can say. Okay. And this sarcomeres having your proteins, that is your actin and your myosin filaments. This is your myosin and this is your actin filaments. Okay. Sarcolemma is what? The membrane. Like we saw here, right? Sarcolemma is your membrane. Sarcoplasm is your cytoplasm. So sarcolemma will be seen outside, not this one. This part is your sarcolemma. Okay. Now, so this actin and myosin filaments are going to be responsible for your contraction. Okay. So before that, let me just show this video. Just yeah. Okay. So to explain the sarcomere structure, I've just added a video. You can see here. So these are your actin filaments. Just note down the arrow mark. These are your actin filaments. Thin filaments are your actin filaments. Okay. So this is how it would be arranged. And these are your myosin filaments. The thick ones present in the center are your myosin filaments. And you can see the overlapping of both this actin and the myosin filaments, right? So all these actin filaments are attached to Z bands. Okay. The Z bands are nothing but the darker perpendicular line that you see in the smooth in the skeletal muscle. These are your Z bands. You can see the overlapping. Yeah. Overlapping area is your A band, where you can see only the myosin is your H band. Only the actin area is your I band. Okay. Okay. So yeah. As I said, this is your actin, this is your myosin, and both are attached to Z disc. Okay. Only actin areas seen that will be your I bands. Both your actin and myosin area will be your A bands. Only the myosin area will be your H bands. Okay. So why these bands are told is needed to be known is you cannot see a sarcomere structure in light microscope. Okay. You can just see a more number of sarcomere all together. You can see single sarcomere cannot be viewed under light microscope, but these are seen as your striations. The striations, the reason for your striations in your skeletal muscles, or the reason for this is all these zones. Okay. So yeah, how do they contract is more of your physiological part, but then I'll just explain your actin and your myosin. This is your myosin, this is your actin. Okay, your myosin heads and your actin filaments are going to coincide with each other, thereby causing contraction of the muscle. After this, there is going to be relaxation. This is called as sliding pathway, or we can call it as ratchet or walk along pathway. All these theories have been put forth to explain about the muscle contraction. Nothing but your actin and myosin filaments are going to slide each other, causing muscle contraction and thereby resulting in relaxation. Okay. This will be taught more detail in the physiology. So yeah, as I said, okay. So this is a bone. Okay. A muscle has been, skeletal muscle has been attached. Muscles will not be directly attached to your bone. Before that, you'll have tendon or ligament. Okay. You are having tendon here. And yeah, the entire muscle is first covered by epimysium. So the outer part of your muscle fiber is going to be your epimysium. Epi is what? Upon. Upon meaning over. Okay. So the outer part is your epimysium. Okay. And now the muscle is cut into an in a cross section. Okay. So when it's cut in the cross section, you can see many number of muscle fascicles or muscle bundle. Okay. And you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bundles here. Okay. 6 or 7 bundles here. Okay. So each single bundle, each fascicle is wrapped by your perimysium. That is, inside you can see perimysium. This is one perimysium histologically. And this is one perimysium. Okay. Perimysium. Now, inside the perimysium, you're going to have endomysium, muscle fiber, each muscle fiber. This is one muscle fiber, this is one muscle fiber, this is one muscle cell, and each muscle cell is surrounded by endomysium, meaning within the muscle fiber. So it is called as endomysium. It is perimysium because perimeter, like surrounding the each muscle fiber. Hence it is called as perimysium. So do not confuse between epimysium, perimysium, and your endomysium. All right. Okay, you can see blood vessels inside the muscle. Okay. Okay. Now, so this is your cross section of your tongue. We can say tongue. One example of skeletal muscle is your tongue. Okay. So your tongue is your what? Voluntary muscle, right? Okay. So your skeletal muscle, this is in your longitudinal section, and this is in your cross section. Meaning, if it is cross section, it is cut in this way. Okay. If it is longitudinal section, it is cut in this way. Okay. So yeah, so in longitudinal section, it is seen as cylindrical bundles, whereas in cross section, it is seen as circular bundles. So yeah, you can see one cross section here. So you can see the nuclei are placed in the periphery. Okay, and the fibers are filled in the center. And this is your endomysium. So this is your perimysium. See, this is your perimysium. This is your endomysium. Nothing but your basically connective tissue. Okay. That was all about your skeletal muscle. Okay. Now, regarding the cardiac muscle. So they have very minor differences when compared to the skeletal muscle. Okay. So the myocardium, that is your cardiac muscle tissue, has its own structure, giving it the ability to contract without nerve signals and involuntarily. So as I said in the first part, your cardiac muscle and your smooth muscles are going to be your involuntary muscles. Okay. Yeah. So you can see here, you can see the branching here, one branching, you can see the branches here. Your cardiac muscles are branched and they are connected with each other. Okay. So this is one cardiomyocyte and this is one cardiomyocyte. It is nothing but a cardiac muscle cell. Okay. And each muscle fiber, muscle cells are connected together by your intercalated discs. This dark, perpendicularly drawn pink lines are your, see here you can see intercalated discs. Okay. This intercalated discs are nothing but, as I said here, the cardiac muscle tissue will function on its own without any waiting for any signals or any impulses waiting. Without the impulses, it just reacts in its own way. Okay. This is because your cardiac muscle, your heart tissue has to pump your blood throughout the body continuously, right? So when they contract, here, same way like your skeletal muscle, they are also going to contract and relax. Okay. So when they contract and relax, in order to each cardiomyocyte to get pulled away, they have something called here intercalated discs. Intercalated discs. They just hold the neighboring cells together. Okay. So they also it is some sort of desmosomes like what we see in the epithelial tissue. You remember regarding the desmosomes and hemidesmosomes. Yeah, those desmosomal attachment we can say. And they also have gap junctions, meaning imagine in lithium batteries, inside the lithium batteries, they are going to be generation of electronic ions, right? They're going to be exchange of ions between the lithium battery, inside the lithium batteries, and thereby they generate some sort of electricity, right? So like that, inside the gap junctions, they're going to be change of ions and thereby resulting in excitation of some sort of impulses which keeps on the contraction and the relaxation process in continuous manner. Okay. So your neighboring cardiomyocytes, that is your heart muscle cells, are connected together by circular structures known as your intercalated discs. Yeah. Allow the flow of ions from one cardiomyocyte to another, allowing the automatic excitation of the cells. Okay. Yeah. Therefore, the myocardium is histologically considered as syncytium. Syncytium is nothing but group of cells which automatically communicate with each other without waiting for any impulses or any signals to get sent to them. Okay. So it is basically autonomic nervous system. Okay. Whereas your skeletal muscles function under what? That is your central, through your voluntary, that is your central nervous system. Okay. Whereas this is your autonomic nervous system. They, as like, as a daily part, they just do their job. Like, for example, in smooth muscle, if you take, if the food is sent under the digestive tract, yeah, it just do the it just take part of the it just do the digestion on its own, right? They do not wait for some impulses, some brain to send signals that you have the food inside, you have to digest. No, as soon as the food enters the digestive tract, your smooth muscles will start digesting the food and excreting the unwanted things. So that is how it is meant to be, and that is what your autonomic nervous system. So likewise, your in your cardiac muscles also, your heart muscles are going to pump blood throughout the body, okay, continuously without waiting for any impulses to send. So this is histological part of your cardiac muscle, both in your, this is your cross section, and this is in your longitudinal section. So be it any muscle of that matter, in longitudinal sections, imagine they're going to be seen as stretch, like long stretches. Whereas in cross sections, they're going to be seen as single, like rounds. Okay. It is very difficult, little bit difficult to see in the cross section, but in longitudinal section with striations and with branching, you can just come to a conclusion whether it is skeletal or your cardiac muscle. So this is your cardiac muscle fiber. You can see here the outline has been quoted here. This is the branching. This is your cardiac muscle cell. You can see in the center, whereas in, yeah, you can see the cells only in the nuclei in the center in case of cardiac muscle. But in case of skeletal muscle, you can see only at the periphery. In the center, it is completely jam-packed with your myofibrils. All right. Okay, so these are your intramuscular capillaries. There's nothing but your blood vessels. Again, this is in cross section. This is in longitudinal section. And yeah, cardiac muscle fascicle. This is one fascicle. And this is one fascicle. Okay. And this is your cardiac muscle cell. Okay. So it's being zoomed in here. So this image is zoomed in here. You can see cardiac muscle cell here, and you can see the nuclei here. And yeah, this is your endomysium, everything. Yeah. Okay. Again, one more picture. So you can see round centralized, meaning the cells, the nuclei, the cell nuclei is always placed in the center in case of your cardiac muscle. In case of skeletal muscle, it is always placed over the periphery in this region. Okay. And they show branching. Okay. So these are your intercalated discs. So intercalated discs are highly specialized cell-to-cell adhesion junctions found in your cardiac muscle. They physically bind cells together to create long muscle fibers. So the force of contraction is transmitted between the cells. Yeah. So when there is contraction, rather than just moving apart from each other, they just like as they are since they are hold together by intercalated disc, there is just equal distribution of contraction stress throughout the muscle fibers. So that is the main function of your intercalated discs. And they also promote the spread of action potentials from one cell to other cell via gap junctions. Yeah. So the next one is your smooth muscle. Okay. So yeah, since it is an involuntary muscle, again, this also performs your involuntary functions like digestion, as I said earlier. Smooth muscle cells do not contain myofibrils. So they do not have any bands, okay? And they don't have any striations also. They have the actin and myosin filaments. They have to contract and relax for the digestion to take place, right? So they do have the filaments, but they do not have any striations, okay? So yeah, they can be seen in the digestive tract, the walls of the bladder, the gallbladder, the iris of the eye, the walls of the blood or lymph vessels. So when smooth muscles are excited by nerve impulses, myosin and actin filaments within the smooth muscles, they change the positions and the tissue contracts. Okay. So yeah, Smooth muscles, what they are all your involuntary muscles. So again the nucleus, it is placed in the center. You can see the nucleus here is elongated, okay, whereas in cardiac cells, yeah, the nuclei was also placed in the center. Here also the nucleus is located centrally. You can see, you can confuse that, yeah, this is also some sort of branching, but no, this is not branching. This is because your smooth muscle cells are going to taper towards their ends. The both the sides will taper towards the end. Okay. So this may mimic as your branching, but you cannot see the striations here. Okay. These are your fibrils, your muscle fibrils, not your striations. Okay. Your striations will be seen as a band of thick zone, thin zone, thick zone, thin zone. But this is not the case here. Okay. And you can see the nuclei in the center. Again, your cardiac cells are going to have nucleus in the center, but they are more rounded. Here you can see the nucleus is elongated and stretched along the length of the muscle fiber. So your smooth muscle, again, it works under your autonomic nervous system. Okay, now coming on to the nervous system. Okay. So basically a nervous system again, this is also an network of fibrous tissue with small nuclei of your neurons and neuroglial cells. So your nervous system is basically made of two things. One is your neurons and next is your neuroglial cells. This neuroglial cells are responsible for enriching the neurons. Okay. So yeah, it is a combination of both neurons and neuroglial cells. Neurons are responsible for conducting nervous impulses between themselves or to other tissues. So there are three types of neurons: motor neuron, sensory neuron, and mixed neurons. Neuroglial cells have different role and mostly regulate pulse transduction, provide protection to the neurons, and supply the neurons with nutrition. Yeah, as I said, they're going to enrich your neurons, right? Okay, so we'll see about each. So this is your peripheral nervous system, your central nervous system, and I mean your sensory, and this is your mixed. Okay. Your sensory is nothing but impulses will be sent from your nerves, your peripheral nerves and your ganglions to the central nervous system, that is your brain and spinal cord. Okay. Whereas your motor neurons and motor nervous system is nothing but the impulses will be sent from brain and the spinal cord to the periphery, that is your voluntary muscles. Okay. So this is your mixed. Okay, I'll just give an example so that you can here understand both about CNS and your BNS. Okay, so whenever you see a flame, okay, your sensory nerve will send impulses to your brain and spinal cord. That is your motor, your central nervous system. That the flame was hot, you have to lift the hand. I mean, the flame is hot. That is a message will be sent by your sensory nerve to your brain and the spinal cord. In turn, your spinal cord will send message to your motor neuron to uplift the hand. Okay. So that is through your motor nerve. That will happen through your motor nerve. So your sensory nerve sends signals to your brain and your spinal cord. In turn, your brain and spinal cord will send signals through your motor nerve to uplift the hand. Okay. So this is your mixed, or you can say, interneuron. Okay, so to talk about the central nervous system, it is basically made of two things. That is your white matter and your gray matter. That is your brain and the spinal cord. Whereas the peripheral nervous system, it is basically made up of fascicles like muscle. We saw the fascicles where we saw the epimysium, perimysium, endomysium. All right, all the same things will be seen under your nerve tissue like perineurium, epineurium, endoneurium, and all. We'll see that. But in your central nervous system, you're going to have two things. One is your white matter and next is your gray matter. Okay. So your white matters are seen on the outer layers of the spinal cord and cortical regions of the brain. Okay. Outer layers of the spinal cord and in the cortex of your brain. Okay. So it mostly contains your myelinated neurons. Myelin is nothing but your neurons, your axon terminals you will have, right? So those will be protected by a layer, okay. So when it is protected, then it is called as your myelinated neurons, okay. Or if it is not protected by myelin sheath, then it is called as your non-myelinated neurons, okay. So your white matters are always composed of basically your myelinated neurons, okay. And these myelinated neurons are responsible for rapid neurotransmitters. There is something called node of Ranvier where the once again, yeah. Imagine you're going to have an entire length of a neuron. Okay. All these are your myelinated area. Okay. And in the center, you're going to have some non-myelinated areas. And these are going to be a node of Ranvier. Okay. So when there is any conduction of impulses, the impulses will be like more generated from here to here, here to here. Okay. The conduction will be more rapid and faster than the non-myelinated neurons. Okay. So, and this technique, like this method is called as your saltatory conduction. So this is more discussed under physiology, but I'll just explain. So yeah, this is your white matter. So more of your myelinated neurons are seen in your white matter. And that is the reason it appears lighter shade in microscope. Okay. So you can see the white matter here. You can see it is very light and you can see more of acellular area, like more of white areas, right? So this because it is myelinated. Okay. Myelins are nothing but glass-like structures. So yeah, your white matters are more of myelinated neuron. Whereas your gray matter, you can see it is so much of packed, right? So yeah, gray matter, it is seen in cortex of spinal cord and peripheral regions of the brain. And peripheral regions of your brain. So that is your gray matter. And your gray matter, when it is seen under microscope, it is little seen in the darker shade. So yeah, now peripheral nervous system. So yeah, as I said, your peripheral nervous system, the neuronal arrangement is same as that of your muscular arrangement, where you get to see the epineurium. The outer layer is your. So before that, we'll just discuss. Yeah, different fascicles. That is layer. Different fascicles is surrounded by layer of connective tissue, and each fascicle is made of neuron. Okay, number of neurons. So neuron is surrounded by Neurons are surrounded by a layer of connective tissue called endoneurium, and these neurons are packed into fascicles, and these are protected by layer of perineurium. As in your muscles, it is epimysium. Okay, mysium is nothing but a muscle. Neurium is nothing but your neurons. So yeah, you can see the outer layer is your epineurium. Okay, inside where you can see more of fascicles, each fascicle is separated by perineurium, right? Yeah. I don't get a proper image. I think, yeah, okay. And each nerve cell or neuron is surrounded by endomysium. Okay. And this is your axon and your myelin. So this is nothing but your neuron is going to be like this, nothing like this. And this is your axon, and this is going to be your myelin. Okay. Axon terminals. So when it is seen under cross section, you will be able to see one dot as an axon and the surrounding layer that this will be seen as a surrounding layer in myelin. Okay. So you can see here. Yeah. So yeah, coming on to the neuroglial cells. Okay. So what are these neuroglial cells? Your neuroglial cells are they see your nervous tissue is basically made of your neurons. Okay, these neurons are enriched by your neuroglial cells. Okay, so one such is your Schwann cells. So as I said, the axon terminals, like the myelin sheath, will be formed in the terminals, right? So these Schwann cells are responsible for forming those myelin, okay, in order to achieve protection and for rapid transmission of signals. That is your saltatory conduction. Okay, so that is will be performed by your Schwann cells. Astrocytes. So astrocytes are basically star-shaped cells, and they regulate the diffusion of substances and nutrients in the nerve tissues. Okay. And next is your microglial cells. Okay, your destruction of pathogens and apoptotic cells through phagocytosis, like macrophages, right? So here the macrophages here are what? So your microglial cells are your macrophages. Okay. So basically, we saw about macrophages last class, right? They play an important role in phagocytosis. Any foreign body of that matter will be engulfed or phagocytosed by macrophages. So here it is tissue specific macrophages. Like, okay, like specific, we discussed about the fixed cells and the fixed cells, right, in connective tissue. So one such is your macrophages. You can take this microglial cell as your fixed cells. Satellite cells, they are necessary for regulating the neurotransmitter concentrations in dense nervous tissue. Neurotransmitter concentrations are required for your cell transduction, like your acetylcholine and all. Okay. So now oligodendrocytes. So myelination of nerve axon in order to achieve protection. Yeah, same. Same, your Schwann cells and oligodendrocytes were same. They're going to perform the same function. And next is your ependymal cells. So ependymal cells are responsible for the production of cerebrospinal fluid, which is essential for nervous tissue. Yeah. This CSF is necessary for to maintain or to balance like how the cells, the cytoskeleton gives a structural integrity for the cell. In that manner, the CSF is responsible for maintaining the nervous tissue. So these are your neuroglial cells. So your neurons, we saw about the neurons and we saw about the neuroglial cells. So these are all your nervous tissue. So, so yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay, any questions you can just ask me.